Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anarita Bashaliva, along with co-host Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Sherray. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any question for our guests. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Dr. Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким покліном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you, Katerina. Today's guest will be introduced by Dr. Victor Fett.
Thank you, Anara. It's my pleasure to introduce today our contributor, Galina ITSKOVICH, and her colleague, Katherina FELDMAN from New York. And this is our 159th meeting of weekly Ukraine program. They are members of an important group which works with children on art therapy in Ukraine, and they will tell us all about themselves and their project. We are focusing today on one very curious and touching children's tale, fairy tale in verse, about which we will tell you everything. So I will share now my screen. Before we start, I want to share a couple of frames from the very recent rally we had here in West Virginia, just to show our support for Ukraine amidst everything that is going on. Here is our group, Help Ukraine West Virginia, and the rally on March 12th at our capital, Charleston, West Virginia. Here you are. And here we switch to Muha-Цокотуха, also known as BUZZY-WUZZY, Busy Fly, by Yevgeny Komarovsky. Presentation, as I said, by Galina ITSKOVICH and Katherina FELDMAN. Please, Galina, microphone is yours. We don't hear you. Please activate. I'm sorry. Galina?
Galina seems to have left us temporarily. She'll probably get back on.
Okay, Katya, you can start.
I can step in. Galina is very long friend of mine, and 3 years ago when the atrocious war began, I got a phone call from Galina to gather all my arsenal of knowledge and professionalism and experience to step in and start helping out the different types of gatherings, organization, children in Ukraine, which what happens there also that children are not just only children, the children will have their special problem. Mentally, but also socially, to keep them in space here and now. So Galina gathered, she's literally like a paperclip. She gathered all the professionals, artists, musicians, and also the clinical social workers that stepped in and started helping out the groups of not only children, their siblings, and their parents. And also throughout the years, all the the members of that group also, they're scattered now all over the world. So it's not only in Ukraine. They are moved some places around the world. So they still are in touch with us, and we conduct the lessons, the meeting, the sessions every week. And every single time that we meet up, that we make sure that children are able to focus, stay with us, and really keep them positive, be in a positive mode. So my personal intake is here that I conduct the lessons through the art therapy sessions, and we learn different types of media and keep them positive and energetic, and keeping them in space is the most important goal for me. And up until now, it's been already over 3 years. I still conduct these lessons, and I still keep them, we still keep in touch. And every week we meet up and gather and we talk, we draw, we paint. Besides just giving this introduction for the lessons, I also encourage them to step in and learn different types of media. So we are not only drawing pictures, we get introduced to the watercolors. And the watercolors would be my favorite part, because I think it's very important when they learn how to let it go. Because when you use the watercolors, there is no way that you can control certain things. So that would be the really great help with that part of it in the media for me. And besides, we learned and I found different types of projects to encourage them to progress more. So one day I got in touch with Dr. Komarovsky, and I offered that, why don't we just illustrate the book, and kids will be part of it, and then he'll be able to read the book because he's done it in the past. So being very helpful to us, he replied right away. We connected, and here we go. We created the book. He opened this book reading to public on YouTube. It has an access throughout the whole entire world for the children who are also in Ukraine. So our kids are actually have a part and intake on this amazing project, understanding that it's not only that they can focus and create and learn, that they can also help other children to be part of this. This is very important. So that's not only this project that we worked on, there's lots of different kinds of projects. And from there on, that Galina took an effort to actually recreate the book using the illustrations from the children. And the book was produced and made back in Kiev. Now we have this book, it's in our hands. And what we do with that, we actually introduce the book, and we encourage different organizations to help us out by purchasing this book. And all the donations that we have, we actually send it back to our organizations that we have, that we take over and we look after, such as I would say On the Move. There's a program that helps out the refugees to settle in different places and find this place to live. Bowl of Hope, this is a special organization that we are taking care of a group of children to send out special food that they need, gluten-free, and because the children aren't have some different difficulties in diabetes and such, and can go on. So there's a lot of things that are happening at this moment. So this is how we work, and this is how we take care of things. And Galina and I made a promise to ourselves, we will keep going up until the end. We will not stop. And I think it's very important to understand and remember that even a little tiny thing of our effort done with the love and care will really make a difference in the world. So I hope Galina is here with us. She can say and add details, information to share with all of you. And thank you, Victor, for inviting us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katerina. I'm sure there will be questions after the reading. But right now, as we will start actually reading this long poem, it's about 100 lines, will read parallel Ukrainian and English translation. But let me first say a few words about the author of the original poem. As I go through several of your images, maybe you can comment further on a few of them.
Yes,
So,
with pleasure. Yeah, Katerina, go
Galina,
ahead.
thank
Yeah.
you. You're here. Great.
Yes.
Okay, so if you want the commentary, first of all, hello everybody. I am happy
Hello.
to be back. I don't know if you guys are tired of me, but here I am. Is it my third time here or fourth time here? I lost
Fourth at
count.
least. Yes, and you're always welcome, Galina.
Yes, and we forged relationships outside of this group with all the wonderful people who were put together into this group, and this is so great because our relationship kind of spills over into other areas of what we are doing, all of us are doing, and going through this horrendous time that we were dealt. But that's a terrible deck of cards. Speaking of deck of cards, right?
Yes.
But okay, before we talk about Kornei Chukovsky and Muha-Цокотуха, and I have to say a few words why Muha-Цокотуха, and a part of this book, the book is here, and a part of the book is that poem with pictures, and the next part is the stories, our stories. Why Muha-Цокотуха? Muha-Цокотуха was the BUZZY-WUZZY fly was chosen by kids, as per Katerina. And this was the dynamics has been very interesting with this book, because Chukovsky, Victor will tell you about Chukovsky's figure, became one of those kind of controversial figures that come from the field of Russian literature, but they totally belong. And kids knew him. Kids were happy to read the poem, and kids found it very relevant to what was going on. And actually, as you may remember, I work with kids on the spectrum. I was a part of this kind of my former student, my Angela Zayats, who's the head now of the Floor Time Center in Kyiv. In 2016, I was in Kyiv, and she said, Galina, can you come and help me move this project along? Should I even start? I said, absolutely, you have to start working within the developmental approach. It's really time. It's Ukrainian time. Time is running out. You need to bring the developmentally based humanistic approach to Ukrainian children on autistic spectrum, to their families. And I was there in 2016. Then we had a big conference in 2018, and I continued to be in touch with them. So it was only natural for me to pick up Messenger and said, what's happening? What's happening with parents? What's happening with you guys? What do we need? I said, we need to sit down and talk to somebody who's not in the midst of it. So I started those virtual sessions, and then I was really desperate after our first conversation with parents and therapists from Kyiv. And I felt that I cannot do it alone. So I picked up the phone and I started calling everyone I know, speech therapists, art therapists, friends, former colleagues, saying, okay, who's in? They need help. And wonderful team is being built. We continue to build this team, and Katya was one of the first people who just without thinking said, okay, when do you need me there? Said, what about tomorrow? She goes, okay, I'll do tomorrow. Just tell me the time difference. Yeah, I'll be there. And she just jumped in, and she's been there from that point on. But back to Chukovsky. Chukovsky felt very relevant for these kids. And with kids on autistic spectrum. We are working through developmental stages. We work through their ability to communicate and relate and build symbolic thinking and symbolic language, and then connect ideas. And this was a leap, developmental leap for those children to think on the symbolic language and to choose the book that is totally relevant to what's going on in a country and put it in pictures and narrate and then look at the results. So I thought that it was a must to make it a book, to make it into something that they can hold on to, and they will look back years from now saying to everything will be great, I believe it, and they will have their children and grandchildren, and one day they'll say, look, that's what I did during the war. And I thought that was relevant. So now back to Victor.
Thank you, Galina. I will share the screen again, and we can talk more if there will be questions. But of course, everybody who, like me and Galina and Katerina, grew up in Russophone, then Soviet Union, childhood, we know Chukovsky by heart, not only this long poem, but many others. He was an interesting figure. I would call him a survivor, and I would call what happens now, what Galina and Katerina were doing, lawful cultural appropriation, because that's the heritage which he himself would be proud of. He was the survivor of so-called silver age of Russian culture, pre-revolutionary, pre-1917. He was 34 when revolution happened, adult, famous, very fiery journalist, and controversial figure in many senses. He was born in Odessa, then in Russian Empire, of course, skipping very tumultuous personal and upbringing life. He became one of the most popular children poets, remotely maybe compared to Dr. Seuss, but they're not comparable in cultural sense. As a young man, he taught himself English, which was very unusual, even went to London as a correspondent of a newspaper. We know him from adaptations of Dr. Dolittle, Mother Goose, translations of Mark Twain, O. Henry, Kipling, Whitman, Wilde, and many, many other things. Above all, he was literary critic and essayist, but it's fair to say that he survived through Soviet years into very old age. He died in 1969 by adopting a niche of children's writer, and his original poetry literally created, along with few other figures, the children's poetry in verse of modern time, and modern time being the last century, because BUZZY-WUZZY is exactly 100 years old. So we will not read a Russian version, which we all know by heart, and everyone who comes from there knows as well. But I suggested that we will show you the illustrations, which are done, as Katerina described, by the group, and some of them actually, like the title illustration, bear Katerina's signature. So I guess she has a part of the book also. So Galina will read her new English translation, which is now published in Kiev, by the way, by Oleg Fedorov, who is very familiar to our viewers, who published many, many other books, both in Ukrainian and Russian, and was on this podcast not once. So let's see. Here is Ukrainian preface to the book on the left, as you can see. Pictures created in the time of war. I assume we are talking about 22, 23, right, Galina? Or even 22 only?
22 only.
Yeah, okay.
The book was finished in 2023, but the work was done in the first 4 months, I believe, of the war.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I start.
You start.
Муха-Цокотуха. Золотиста цокотуха, від черевця і до вуха. Муха полем мляво шла і копієчку знайшла. Пішла муха на базар і купила самовар. Таргани, заходьте, люби, я вас чаєм пригощу.
Buzzy-Wuzzy, busy fly, yellow belly, beady eye. Buzzy-Wuzzy ran around, Buzzy-Wuzzy found a pound. Off she went to the bazaar, and she bought a samovar. Come and meet me, bugs and roaches, I invite you all to tea.
Таргани одраз біжали, всі стакани спустошали, а комашки по 3 чашки з молочком та із тістечком. Відсвяткуєм Цокотухине народження.
Roaches gathered without number, emptied tumbler after tumbler, and the bugs to honest hearts, each 3 cups with milk and tarts. So it went on hail a hearty, Buzzy-Wuzzy's birthday party.
It's a good translation. And Yura, actually, that was his picture. I know Yura since 2016. His mom was a dermatologist, and she changed her profession and she became the developmental specialist. She really, really blossomed in the field, and Yura blossomed. Go ahead. Мусі 2 блохі сестрички приносили черевички. Чоботки на магазині, ремінці дорогоцінні. Ось прийшла до мухи матінка бджола. Мусі, цокотусі медовик спекла. Красеню метелику, є до вас прохання. Пробуйте без поспіху наше частування.
Then a jolly flock of fleas brought her boots, do wear them please, and no common boots were they, with gold buckles bright and gay. Then to Buzzy-Wuzzy came kind old Granny Bee, with a jar of honey that goes nice with tea. Butterfly, here's pastry, darling, try some jam, so you find it tasty, or how glad I am.
Несподівано старий павучок нашу муху за бочок хап в куток. Мовчки, щоб нараз і вбити, ні за що занапастити. Ой, пани, біжіть допомагати, харцизяку злого порубати. Годувала вас, шанувала вас, не покиньте мене в мій останній час.
Suddenly a sly old spider sailed up and sat beside her. Buzzy-Wuzzy set to kill, Buzzy-Wuzzy's blood to spill. Help me, honored guests, slay him the detested pest, for I greeted you and I treated you, don't forsake me now at my fatal hour.
And as you see, that's exactly the story, and look at the spider. That was not the spider with the swastika, right?
Mm-hmm.
Katya,
With Z sign, yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Z, yeah.
Yes. This sign.
Yeah, yes, and kids understood, yeah.
Yes.
Але тут мураші налякалися, по підлозі розповзлись, завагалися, по кутам хробачки, під диван комашки, по кутам хробачки, під диван комашки, клоп сховався в бур'яни. Ми не хочемо війни. Жодна кузка із місця не рухається, а до мухи навіть не прислухаються.
But the beetles and the bugs, getting scared to death, under saucers, cups, and mugs, huddled out of breath. Under couches crouched the roaches, bugs, poor creatures, hidden pitchers, beetles huddled under beds. No one wished to lose their heads. No one at the party budges from the spot. No one cares if Buzzy perishes or not.
And it's amazing that it feels like that. Just 2 weeks ago, we all felt like that again, like the whole world left Ukraine.
Yes.
А швидкий зелений коник Зі столу стягнув смаколик і гукає з-під вікна: «Геть війна!»
And the grasshopper non-stop leaped across the tabletop, hoppity-skippity out of the house, hid in a brambling bush, white as a mouse.
Харцизяка павук не жартує, бідну муху нещадно катує, гострі зуби у серце втинає і всю кров з тонких вен випиває. Муха криком кричить, надривається, лиходій же тільки в вуса посміхається.
But the pest isn't meaning to joke. Bind the fly hand and foot with a rope, sticks his terrible teeth in her heart. From the wound, scarlet blood drops start. Buzzy screams, Buzzy cries at the top of her voice, while the villain goes on to suck blood and rejoice.
Раптом з неба хтось гукнув. Дивляться, комарик. Він тримає у руці крихітний ліхтарик. Де тут вбивця? Хто здурів? Не злякаюсь пазурів. Підліта до павука, шаблю вистромляє і йому на швидкоруч голову рубає.
Suddenly, with twists and turns, a mosquito comes. In his hand a lantern burns. Threatening he comes. Where's the coward? Bring him here. His sharp talons I don't fear. In a jiffy up he flies, pulls his saber out and cries, "Now, you brute!" and at full gallop deals the pest a deadly wallop.
He looks a little bit like Zelensky. Муху за руку бере, до віконечка веде. Я злочинця зарубив, я тебе, душа, звільнив. А тепер, дівчина люба, тебе запрошу до шлюбу. Тут комахи та козяви швидко виповзли з-під лави. Слава, слава комару, переможцеві!
By the hand he takes the fly, to the window leads her spry. Now the villain's dead and perished, now I freed the one I cherished. I'll be happy as can be, if you come and marry me. Here the beetles and the roaches crawled from under couches. Glory, glory to Mosquito the victorious.
Вдавалися світляки, запалили вогники, отже стало весело, стало усе гаразд. Гей, сороканіжки, стрибайте по доріжці, кличці музикантів, потанцюємо. Музиканти-світляки принесли дримби і роги. Бом, 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 скаче муха з комаром.
The fireflies in the crowd lit their lamps and cheered aloud, and it got so merry, so jolly round. Hey, you nimble centipede, hurry down the road full speed. Bring along musicians, let us sing and dance. The musicians come along, ply their drumsticks lithe and strong. Boom, 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 the dance begins. With Mosquito, Buzzy spins.
А за нею жук, жук, чоботами грук, грук. Гусениці з черв'яками, попелиці з тарганами, а жуки рогаті, мешканці багаті, вигукують та гарцюють, з метеликами танцюють. Тарара, тарара, веселіться мошкара, вся вечірка гуде, муха заміж іде, за безстрашного, дерзкого, молодого комара.
After Buzzy without stop stamps the bedbug, clop, 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 ladybirds with butterflies, bugs of every sort and size, and the giant beetles too, daintily dressed and well-to-do, waving hats and prancing, with gypsy moths go dancing. Tararara again, loud sang and danced the insect crowd. On and on goes hale and hearty Buzzy-Wuzzy's wedding party. She'll be married to Mosquito ugly, Spider's bold defeater.
А мурах, личаки на ногах, теж з мурахою підстрибує і комашечкам підмигує. Отож ви, мої улюблені малишечки, мали маличенькі тарганишечки. Каблухи гримкотять, чоботи риплять, буде грати мошкотня, ніч від смерку до рання. Нині Муха-Цокотуха іменинниця.
And the ant, with his top hat aslant, hops and skips around his missus, blows the girl nets, stealthy kisses, or you gnats, or you saucy brats, cocky cockroaches in your Stetson hats, all the jolly swarm will carouse till dawn, for today's BUZZY-WUZZY's jolly wedding day. The end.
And there was a very funny moment, right? Katherina, when she tried to explain the lapti, right?
Yes, it was very funny because it's originated from Russia. So we had to change it.
Yes, those straw shoes, right?
Yes, straw shoes, yes.
Yeah, there was some funny story. I don't remember, right?
Yes,
something associated with those straw shoes. Yeah. Yeah, but and the next picture is actually Alexandra Yandeleva, who's she also there without fail, right? She's very active in Katherina's group, the art group, and also she was very brave. She's in Kiev, but that's not why she's brave. She's very brave. She just jumped in because I needed somebody to lead a group of parents who were evacuated by our friends from Seattle. They moved a group of parents from Kherson. As Kherson was being occupied, they moved them to Western Ukraine. And I said, Alexandra, you're it, you're gonna lead the group. She says, but I was never a group therapist. Don't worry, you will get supervision. We will take you by the hand, but you need to be the one, not me. So she started the group. And it was a very, very, very challenging for her as a professional. At the same time, she had her full caseload at work. At the same time, she was managing Katya's group. And they all go on. We all continue. I just finished my supervision of the Ukrainian groups that we continue. Katya mentioned on the move, those women who move back and forth, and the front lines move too. And sometimes they find themselves like one of our groups, the front line get dangerously close, and we were thinking that we would need to help them evacuate, but for now they decided to stay put, to stay where they're at, and evacuations are not mandatory yet. And whatever Victor said about the financial part, and Katherina also mentioned the financial part. The financial part is money is just gets folded back into our entire operations, supporting the group therapists. This is all volunteer for us, but we pay to our therapists in Ukraine. It's nominal for us. It's really life-changing for them. They also need to support themselves, at least, Maslow pyramid. They need these bases. They need money that just to function. And we also try to send food packages and vitamins and gluten-free, lactose-free, sugar-free, whatever is needed to those areas where the supply chains are falling apart or things happen. We had the situation in 2023 with one of the Kherson groups. The person who used to distribute whatever we were sending lost whatever we sent and whatever else she had there. They targeted the office of the Red Cross, and then they killed the volunteer. They really were hunting down the volunteers, and they eventually killed one of their volunteers who was bringing those packages to our clients. What are the chances? So it's really, unfortunately, money fuels a lot of those operations, and that's how we survive. But also we do things that sometimes are not measurable. you cannot quantify what happened enough. You cannot you cannot also qualify as well, because it's really priceless. And thank you, Katya. I use this opportunity to say thank you again.
Thank you. I would not say it's my pleasure. I think it's mandatory for me. So this is how I take it.
Well, it's pleasure too. It's so much fun. I had fun translating.
It is fun. It's a lot of fun. Yes, of course, of course. We build a very strong relationship with children, with parents, and also adults. There's some adult group. And also thank you to Alexandra. She's by my side every single meeting.
Yeah.
We now working on a new project, which is very exciting, and all the children are participating in it. They do understand that besides helping them, they also step with us and they help others. So this is a very important message that we're trying to convey to all the children. So thank you, Galina, for inviting me again to be part of this amazing project. Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours. I was going to say that we cannot just go in those groups looking like we're at a wake. We need to be uplifting, reasonably uplifting, but we need to be alive, and we need to be not happy, but regulated. It's very important. Yeah.
Yes.
That's our story.
Thank you both. And before I go to questions, I need to read a comment from Carol Smith. Dr. Smith had to leave now for a meeting, but she is our connection to our university's trauma center. She is a psychologist and director of our trauma center. She often participates here. Carol says the quality of the illustrations is phenomenal. I can see why this poem is so popular, why children love it so much. They each can find themselves in the various types of insects represented in the poem, and it is a rich metaphor for the struggle between good and evil, and how the hero mosquito defeats the sly spider and saves the lovely fly. Anything we can provide to children to help them process the strain of the struggle between good and evil is a good thing. We adults need stories of heroes too, and we need stories in which the good guys win. The power of words, says Carol, is stronger than we know. When we can express something in words, we begin to get a handle on the thing being expressed. Words are important and full of power, the power to tear down or the power to build up. Thank you very much, Carol.
I will write to her.
Yes.
Personally to
please
say thank you for this. Yeah.
Dr. Deutsch, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Leonard Deutsch, please.
I have a question about the poem, but before I do, a minor editorial observation. Midway through the poem and the translation, I think the intended word was quiet, Q-U-I-E-T, but it was spelled Q-U-I-T-E, quite.
Not my fault.
It's not your fault? Okay.
I am not a translator. It's internet's fault.
Okay. Anyway, here's my question. The hero is the mosquito, and what is the significance there? The mosquito is not a traditionally heroic figure, so can you explain?
I can answer this. Maybe
go ahead.
Galina can add, but the first thing which comes to mind is the most annoying piece of Russian music, The Flight of Mosquito, from the opera The Tale of King Sultan. And mosquito comes here not from Ukrainian biological labs, as one might think, but directly from Pushkin. It is paraphrased Prince Guidon from Pushkin's classical fairy tale written exactly 100 years before BUZZY-WUZZY. And it's one of the morphs, insect morphs, including bumblebee, mosquito, and what's the third? I forgot. Moth. The magic prince who turns 3 times in an insect and finally deals the blow to the bad guys. Anyway, it's Pushkin's fairy tale, known to everyone as opera. it's cultural.
Rimsky-Korsakov.
Rimsky-Korsakov, exactly. But it's cultural. So mosquito indeed is not probably a traditional fairy tale character, but neither are other insects. I mean, insects are, not the, well, invertebrates are generally not much represented in folk lore.
I want to say that Dr. Fett promised that we will have the fly specialist here.
Well, I could, but it would take us too much. I can stand in as an invertebrate zoologist and assure you that Chukovsky's imagery is very unique. He built upon the traditional. Yep, he built upon traditional good and evil, but also on. Everything in Russian culture is short-circuited to Pushkin. So Pushkin created a lot of genres, among them more or less children's poem in verse, which did not exist before, sometimes long enough. And I would say Chukovsky has utilized it to the hilt, because he also has another insect poem about a giant cockroach, Tarakaniще, which is a monster eating children, and now it is firmly welded with Stalin's image, although scholars say that Chukovsky wrote it before Stalin fully came to power. Then he has his first animal story was about a crocodile who swallows bad guys, and then
swallows
the sun. That's later. That's later version. I'm talking about crocodile, pre-revolutionary crocodile. With his children, the original one. But anyway,
он Татоши и Кокоши по бульвару.
Yes, this one didn't swallow the sun. Sun was, no, that's crocodile. Maidadir is different. So there is at least several things. Some are practically zooxical. For example, I don't even want to start on Maidadir, which is how would you describe it? A washstand coming alive. Something like this, the washstand coming alive. But you have this weird imagery. He has Fedorina Gori, where a bad housewife has all the utensils running away from her, and all kinds of, very original, I would say, unprecedented, often with Zussian sadomasochistic tunes, maybe, as opposed to more mild children's poetry, which we also had. But anyway, Chukovsky was very original. And I must say that probably, I'm not a Chukovsky scholar, but most of his imagery was heavily fed by Mother Goose, by traditional English and European poetry, which he translated, because it's plainly surrealistic very often. Not in BUZZY-WUZZY. BUZZY-WUZZY is rather traditional. It doesn't have unusual monsters or situations, but he has a crocodile, as Galina said, that swallows the sun. He has the famous bird which lights up the sea. Синички взяли спички. Two little birds took matches and lighted up the sea, things like this. All kinds of disasters he has. Yep.
Thank you.
I would say apocalyptical.
Well, very much.
Lots of apocalyptical tales.
This came so easily. He lived through those times. This was very natural at this time. Only he showed it for children, and this was also new because children's poetry of these years was very inane and non-existent, and he somehow created the entire niche for himself. Any more questions and comments before I go into dissertation?
I just want to say that translating, well, why I translated because the translation that Dr. Komarovsky read with our kids' illustrations was very Russophone. It was using words that don't belong to the Ukrainian language at all. And I translate when I'm compelled to make something better, and I just couldn't stand it, and it was not the time to use those substitute words.
This
And
is
so
this is
I
something.
translated.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
then
I'm sorry.
yes, and then Ilya Lipis, who Dr. Fett I'm sure knows, Galina, there are so many Russophone words here. They're not Ukrainian. And I cleaned up again. I edited and then I looked at it and I found more. And I kept finding Russian words because that's the appropriation. That's the cultural appropriation that has been taking place for so many years. The sad and ironic part of all of that work is that now in Ukraine they say, oh, okay, Pushkin, Tchaikovsky, all these people don't belong here because they come from the empire. And I think that Tchaikovsky happened to be so anti-empire. And his daughter was the famous dissident, and she was fighting against the regime, Lydia Tchaikovskaya.
Yes. I wanted to mention this too, because
yeah.
all this appropriation has to be now handled on individual basis. We only judge people by what they did, what they wrote, and what they did not do. So in the same sense, we can talk for hours about appropriation or disappropriation of Jewish culture in Russia, in Ukraine, in Europe, anywhere. We can discuss Kafka in under all angles, but their work is what we have now. 100 years past. That's exactly how today's work will be judged, maybe 50 or 100 years from now. And this is great because one theme which I'm not very familiar with, of course, because I don't have Ukrainian language mastery. We grew up in Soviet times. This is something which our Anglophone viewer, listener doesn't know. We grew up with all kinds of dialects and influences. And now I see, as I am more exposed to Ukrainian and recent languages, that a lot of words and forms which were Ukrainian, flowing into Russian, we didn't know they were Ukrainian. We understood them as imperfect Russian. It works both ways. Many forms which were thought to be simply incorrect or dialectic or slangish, they came from other languages. In Odessa especially, we know Yiddish influence on Odessa Russian. There was Greek, there was German, there was Polish, and in any edge of the range of the language. So this is an interesting issue which you discussed. I heard it discussed recently also by other translators, especially those which hail from Odessa or Kharkiv. They admit that their speech is full of Russian equivalents of existing Ukrainian words. So it is an interesting work which is going on. They need to, how to say it? The language is recreated, not in the same sense as Hebrew, not from that from scratch, but it's different. It has to be established, I guess. Literary vocabulary this work has been done, but because, again, for the benefit of our viewers, because languages are both Slavic and both close and come from different perspectives, you probably have to struggle with usage, with vocabulary. I really don't have analogy. Maybe Katherina Shrey will help me. Analogies like this in English, because English has different fate and we have different Englishes. And we're not talking about dialects, but rather about related influence of mutual influence of languages from two groups. I can see it right here in BUZZY-WUZZY because I admire Galina's translation, but I hardly understand it because I know the text in Russian, but this language is not is not what I know from the childhood.
Mhm.
And not many things are changed. English is much more approximate. I mean, with Stetson hats and whatnot. But the languages are close. You can express the same imagery, obviously, but you have to use different vocabulary. And this is very important. It's almost like, I guess, reconstructing an old manuscript in the language which has been partially forgotten, something like this. You fill in the gaps with what you can bring, right?
Yes, it's also very interesting that we were thinking about Ukrainian as the like little brother of the big
Right.
brother,
Oh,
was
yes.
the symbolism, right? And then looking down at Belarusian, that in Odessa they said, oh, Belarusian is just, it's not a real language. It's Ukrainian, Russian were crossing the street and were hit by a car, and whatever emerged was Belarusian.
Well,
Terrible, right?
I'm sure.
Terrible.
I'm just
But
struggling
that's
for
the
analogies.
attitude.
Yes.
But that's the attitude, and that was the attitude to Ukrainian. Uneducated people speak Ukrainian, and that was the attitude in cities like Kharkiv and especially Odessa. And yeah, it's not a real language; it's a happy language. But the interesting part is that actually Ukrainian is not the little brother. Ukrainian has Latin roots, which I came to appreciate in Italy because I heard Ukrainian words everywhere. I said, wow, I know some Italian now because probably because of the church and because of those Rome Catholic influences,
Polish.
but definite Latin roots. So yes, it's a very different language that was tortured and kind of confined.
I
Weird.
think Kornichukovsky would be very pleased. He was extremely he was a great polymath and extremely accepting person, enough to say that he helped covertly. He helped dissidents. Solzhenitsyn lived in his country house for quite a while, and Chukovsky was always under the risk. He never was imprisoned, but heavily criticized. Enough to mention, again, for the sake of our viewer, that Muha itself and related poems were criticized and banned by Lenin's wife, Nadezhda Krupskaya, who was in charge of children's education in 1920s. It was called Chukovshchina, which means Chukovskyite, whatever type of literature, and it was heavily criticized as dangerous for children because obviously the class nature of Spider and Mosquito was not explained enough, and you can see that there are even rich ants dancing at the wedding party, which was definitely against the politics at this time. But I can discuss it forever. Please, Katerina, our Katerina, you have a lot of comment, I'm sure.
So you asked about analogies in the English language, and not currently, but I was going to talk about when English morphed from Old English to Middle English, and I see in our chat that Leslie Titus had the same idea. There was a period between the 1200s and like the 1350s that English had a lot of doublets. Like you'd have the same word in French and you'd have it in Anglo-Saxon. And a good example is when we talk about food products. The animal is pig, but the food is pork. The animal is cow, but the food is beef. And like, so you see these words entering and competing and eventually finding specializations. I mean, I bet that's pretty far afield from what we're talking about here, but I appreciate so much this work with Ukrainian. So a little bit of background, and Galina, you are a very beloved guest on our show. Katya, it's so beautiful to meet you. Your illustrations are gorgeous. I grew up here, and there's literally a million Ukrainian Americans like me who grew up in Ukrainian schools, Ukrainian churches, Ukrainian scouts. And when I went to Ukraine for the first time, I spoke Ukrainian, and I definitely got looks like double takes, like, why is this American speaking Ukrainian? Why not Russian? Oh my gosh. So it was very, for me, I think I was young, stupid, missed the whole impact of what that was, but it makes me appreciate so much our parents' insistence that we preserve our language. And it was definitely like, it was weird because I think the class aspect of Ukrainian and Russian, I mean, it was not so much in Western or in Lviv, but when I was in Kiev, there's very little, when I was there, late 1990s, very little Ukrainian spoken. In fact, my father almost got into a fight with someone because he was speaking Ukrainian and the guy made some derogatory comment, and my dad literally, is one of the few times in his life, I think, that he was prepared to physically fight. But it was weird because typically Ukraine was looked down upon, but I was an American citizen dressed in Western clothes, at the time comparatively well off, to probably still comparatively well off. And so I was this weird situation where I was lower socially because I was speaking Ukrainian, but I was higher socially because I was a rich Westerner. I wasn't, but so it was a really interesting dynamic. Thank you for this work on this. This is amazing. I've got a quick comment to you all, and I have a question for Dr. Fett. I love what you said for this book project to involve the children as illustrators, when the kids can 30 years from now say, this is what I did during the war. I love the positivity. I love the creation, the birth of something, as opposed to the destruction and the constant threat of death. I absolutely, like everybody in our program has been impressed with you all, and now even more so. I do agree with Dean Deutsch. I think the mosquito is an odd choice. I was not familiar with the history of the mosquito in Russian literature. I would think a dragonfly would work. I don't know, but my question too, that's my own prejudice against mosquitoes. And I guess in Western children's cartoons, the mosquitoes I've never seen a mosquito as a good guy. So interesting. Victor, you mentioned at the beginning of the program the demonstration held on March 12th in support of Ukraine in Charleston. Would you feel comfortable just elaborating a little bit? Was it well attended? How was it received? How are things politically?
It is our local group, Help Ukraine West Virginia. We meet a couple of times a year for holidays, and they collect money, and they just since Charleston is our capital city, where the Senate is and everything, they felt it necessary this week to go for a demonstration. There were a number of people with, as you've seen, with flags and posters, and they told me that they were well accepted, at least from the crowd, from the cars going by. About half of them honked to support them, and very few were negative.
Thank you.
So it's our local situation. Senator Justice, our new senator, and all this. Of course, situation is so bizarre and unpredictable that nobody can say what's going on, and it's weird. The clothes. I don't even want to make literary analogies because it will take me too far into some characters.
I'm just glad to hear that there was some public support.
There was a good support. As for insects, well, some of course, even before classical Pushkin mosquito, I think he was original, although he relied a lot on French fables, as many at his time. And they have insects. They have cicada, which morphed somehow into dragonfly in Russian fables. They have ants, which are classical. It's like from ancient Greece,
grasshopper in
symbolic,
the ant.
grasshopper in the ant, symbolic things. If we dig there, we will definitely find spider because, again, of Greek stories. But I think, yes, Tchaikovsky was very original. And in fact, I have this pet theory that a poem, even such a long one like this, may be triggered by one single line and by one single rhyme. And I think the rhyme in the first two lines is what created the entire poem in his mind, because Bazar and Samovar are very folksy, very Russian, or, well, of this tradition. Samovar, for those who don't know, is a kind of tea boiling
Teapot, yeah.
device. It's not just teapot.
Not
it's
pot. It's like
a complicated device for boiling tea before electricity and before gas, because samovar was supposed to be fired by pine cones. You had pine cones which went into it. There was a special part of it. It is still popular. I mean, and of course, these two lines and many others almost were taken from folk songs. He was very keen. He had very keen ear. Unlike Dr. Zeus, who basically made everything from scratch. You hardly find any folklore. You hardly find any Mother Goose in Dr. Zeus. Let's say this. He is very original. Tchaikovsky and his people of his time relied heavily on folk songs, but also morphed them in a very shrewd way, creating this very unusual genre of large poem. This is 100 lines. It's relatively large because it has a plot. And interestingly, what I see now, it continues when a folk tale ends, because folk tale ends with one phrase always, and there was a wedding. But Tchaikovsky keeps describing a wedding in at least 30 lines, wedding party itself. So he wants to pile up the positive imagery, the dance tunes, and they seem extremely excessive, but we enjoy them anyway.
Okay, I raised my hand, but I'll just...
Yes, please.
Yes. So first of all, I think mosquito has the connotation of, stinging, bringing justice in Pushkin and in Tchaikovsky's as well. So mosquito comes there to sting. It hurts, but that's justice. Justice is being served. And I thought it was so relevant. But the second one, I think I have a bit of entertainment. I don't know if I can share a screen here.
Right.
Can I?
Yes. You can. There is a arrow which should be on top, right? It says share screen.
Can I also
I see.
Can I also add, it's just such a tiny, small little thing in the instant, right? But he bites very strong.
Right.
So that's also the difference here that we can actually see here, right? And why we chose.
Tchaikovsky further developed this motif in his last series on Bibigon, who is the elvish prince.
Oops. Oh, sorry.
That's opera.
Went on its own. Yes, I remember it actually today. I remembered about this opera by Krasov, and I found it. And I found this beautiful piece from the last scene, which I think the music is wonderful. The music is so spunky and great, and that's just a positive ending. And yes, I can share sound here too. Okay. So just let me know if you want me to play it.
Yes, please.
It's not long. It's like 2 minutes.
Sure.
Do you mind? Anybody mind?
Yes, please play it.
It's not our children. It's just random children of YouTube that I found. Yeah, I just wanted to share that, to just continue in this. Yeah, we have our right to have, we deserve to have fun.
When
We
children do
deserve to
too,
express. Yeah.
and children do too, of course. And it is great. It is not just translation, as we said in the beginning. It's a sort of cultural. Well, appropriation is not the correct word, but possession or heritage.
Repossession.
Repossession, probably, yes, is a good word, because whatever it is, this culture is also gone already. Just like 19th century. This text is 100 years old. It's no, in other words, no one today will write text like this in any language. It belongs to 1920s. Now, it belongs actually to Tchaikovsky's own upbringing, which would be 1880s, because people write the way they heard in the childhood. So he was very interesting. He had very interesting upbringing. He has memoirs about his school years. He was an illegitimate child of a Jewish man from St. Petersburg and Ukrainian peasant woman, essentially from Odessa. There is a lot. There are books and books about this. Do we have more comments or questions, please?
I have
August.
a question.
Yes,
Victor.
please, August. Please.
Maybe a little bit off the topic.
Yeah.
I wonder if his early work on the art of translation is still influential.
I would say so.
He argued for, as I understand it, an artistic rather than a technical translation.
It's a classic, and people respected him quite a lot. It is artistic. In fact, I mentioned that he translated a lot of English prose for us, and retold a lot of stories. And again, this was artistic. It definitely was not technical. Sometimes it went overboard, recreating things like Dr. Dolittle. His character is very different from the original English. His Robinson Crusoe was very different from original Defoe, because he retold it for children, and that's what we read as children. But this was very positive. All things that he taught us, all things that he wrote, were extremely positive, and he never abandoned his very serious literary scholarship. It was always seen through. In fact, his most famous, probably adult book is about children's language, about child language it is called simply from 2 to 5, Advu de Petit. And believe it or not, I read this book as a child.
Same here. Yes.
It was in my parents' bookshelf, and I wasn't 5, but I was probably 8 or 9, and I enjoyed this book tremendously because he was the first to record children's expressions systematically and enjoy it as natural wordsmith patterns, child's language. Very, very profound book. And nobody really paid attention, at least in Russian, before him. That's what made him really, really famous. I think this book was written in 1950s, the first version, probably after the Second World War.
So fairly late in his life.
His life was tragic. Out of his children, his youngest daughter died at age 10 from tuberculosis, and one of his sons perished during the war. And his older son became a writer and died before the father died. And as Galina mentioned, his daughter Lydia Chukovskaya was one of the most famous dissidents and very staunch defender of freedom until her last days. This was the whole dynasty, which is now gone. They were some of the most important people of this time. Well, all I can say. Everybody knows the names. Not everybody knows all the writings, but I guess they couldn't save the civilization, but they contributed to survival of some of it.
They tried, like your rally
Yep.
in Charleston wouldn't stop or change the course, but it was significant.
It was.
We all are
and
trying.
what you are doing is very significant because I mean, millions know the text, but no one thought about really doing what you are doing, and that's what matters. We are very grateful to you both for what you are doing, for your time and positive input which you have in those very, very troubled times. If we don't have any more questions or comments, maybe Galina and Katerina want to say something else as we are coming to the end of the program.
I would love to, and I would love to share some of the work that we have done throughout, I would say now, as it sounds sad, but throughout the years. So I just collected a couple of these, but I have piles of the artwork that I now collected working with children. And you probably noticed that a lot of the warm colors that we see here, the reason that I'm doing this because as a professional, as an artist, I found that the warm colors bring a lot of positive emotions, a lot of warmth and happiness to the atmosphere, to the class. And we do learn lots of different things throughout the classes. So not only talking about the color palettes, the different types of art, and we learned travel. We travel around the world, so we use lots of different ideas, lots of different ideas throughout the classes. So that's the only couple of things that I'm showing you, so you have an idea how we work and what we do. So we do meet online. Usually it's Zoom online classes, and we run sometimes on the Google Meet, and kids connect throughout different areas, not only from Ukraine. Some of them are moved, they had to move, they have to flee, they have to leave. But this is how I run the classes, so you have the idea how everything looks and what we actually do, not just only recreating or illustrating books or participating in different projects, but only every week we meet up and we work together, and we keep on going. So I just would like to add that part of it. So thank you so much for inviting us and being part of your team today.
Thank you so much for being with us. Galina?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for us and for all our projects and for different people. And I just want to say that, yeah, we all survive in groups. Katya did a tremendous job. I didn't know what I was starting when I put her in touch with Floor Time Center, but she created that whole cocoon. She created this network. She wasn't, Spider was such a negative guy in this book that I'm afraid to even say Spider, but she created a cobweb that she holds different parts of project together. She brought together kids from teenagers from Dushkivka and Kiev kids, and they're working on a project together. And she's such a dynamic personality, like Victor and Katerina, who I think that they're people who brought together this group. And we all are kind of in charge of our little groups, but this whole bunch of groups creates the big fabric that holds us through this war. Because yes, we are in safety, but we also suffer as bystanders. We can be in pain as bystanders. We can be in pain from just feeling helpless and powerless. That's very, very that's a very strong feeling that is not good for our neurons, and it's not good for our ability to perform our executive tasks. Yeah, so it's better to be in a group. I appreciate this group. I will put in the chat box the information about the book. Book can be bought, purchased here in the US from me, and I put the PayPal, and I think it's enough, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, okay. And thank you all very much. And thank you for the samovar, Katerina.
The pleasure is all ours.
We have one at my house. And
have
and
two.
it, just for our American listeners, samovar is literally self-cooker or a self-contained cooker.
Yeah,
Boiler,
so
yeah, self-cooker,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, self-cooker, yeah.
self-boiler.
It's very advanced.
pretty impressive.
There are some
Yeah.
electric ones too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
These
Yes.
days, of course. Katerina,
Thank you very
please.
much.
Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня прощаємося.
Слава Україні.
Героям слава!
Слава.